Well, the markets are not liking this inflation report, and nobody should. I wish I could say I was sitting here shocked by it, but 20 minutes ago, the CPI, Consumer Price Index numbers came out. Inflation rising 3.5% year over year. The expectations were for 3.4%. Core CPI that strips out food and energy up 3.8%. Above the expectations of 3.7%. So 36 straight months inflation above 3%, second straight monthly increase. So the Fed's target is 2% inflation. So at 3.5% to 4%, you're looking at nearly double what the Fed wants the inflation rate to be. The markets are tanking in the pre-trading hours, and that's expected because what the markets are reading is that rate cuts are even less likely this year. And they should have never been all that likely this year. There is no reason for Jerome Powell and the Fed to cut interest rates right now, unless they want to really make the dollar even less valuable than it currently is. There's this notion that we have to get back to lower interest rates, and I would say why? Why do we have to get back to lower interest rates? I mean, yes, I would like people who are in the housing market right now to not have 7% mortgage rates out of the gates. It would be nice to have lower interest rates for people that need cars and homes and things like that. But if you want to, if you think 3.5% inflation is high, wait till you start cutting rates. People running back out, buying cars, buying homes, spending money like crazy, buying with cheap money. You're going to have 4, 5, 6% inflation back in no time. They can't do it. It would be terrible monetary policy at this point to cut the interest rate. So the markets don't like that because the market had baked in a couple of interest rate cuts this year. And at this point, I think Jerome Powell had signaled, the Fed chair, that any interest rate cuts were not going to happen probably before June. And now you're likely pushing that back to the fall. And frankly, if he starts cutting rates weeks before a presidential election, I mean, that is just suicide. It's political suicide. It is economic suicide. That would create so many problems. I would put rate cuts on hold until next year. If I'm Jerome Powell, I would just come out in my next Fed meeting and press conference and say, we see no reason to move off of the interest rates where they're at. We've got an election coming up. It could be a tumultuous next few months. Let's just signal to the markets and signal to the economy at large that we are not going to, barring something unforeseen, we are not planning any rate cuts until 25. Just come out and say it. The markets will react as the markets want to react, and everybody else can at least get used to an environment and plan around an environment of the interest rates being where they're at. You ask people who were around, and I wasn't, but, many of you were, late 70s, early 80s, that's high interest rates. This is, I don't want to say it's the historical average, but it's certainly not high by any stretch of the imagination. I know it's higher than most people want it to be, but you cannot start cutting interest rates right now. And that's what the markets are, I don't want to say they're freaking out over it right now, but certainly the implied open, Dow's off 400 plus points here with the opening bell coming up in a half hour. NASDAQ off a couple hundred points. S&P off 75 as basically all stocks are going to open up in the red in some capacity. And that's just because they realize this inflation report means the rate cuts are not coming like a lot of people thought they might be. And that should not be a surprise. It's hopefully not going to happen. Now, Powell has said, as he said on 60 Minutes a few weeks ago, that he's not going to wait for their 2% inflation number to start cutting rates, which I don't understand either. It's like, get to the number you want to get to and then potentially start moving rates down slowly and steadily. But at this point, you would be out of your mind to begin cutting rates in this environment. So I'm hoping it doesn't happen. I don't think it will. I think the market realizes it's not happening. And when you look at year over year change by category, what are some of the biggest increases right now? Year over year, cost. Auto insurance, 22%. Have you seen your auto insurance bill? If that got renewed recently, it is just skyrocketing. I remember I reached out to my guy when we got our renewal, and I'm like, I said it politely. Like, what the hell's going on here, man? He's like, dude, I've never seen it in my life. He's like, the amount of people that are driving without insurance these days is astronomical. Now, is that in part because we just rolled through 10 million people across the border and we don't know who they are, what they're driving, what they're doing? I don't know. But can't imagine that helped things. If we're being honest, auto repair up 12%. Transportation services up 11%. Baby food and formulas up 9.9%. That's not good for guys like you and I, Mark. Yeesh. That formula's expensive, man. Mark's shaking his head in there. It seems like I hit a sore spot with you, buddy.
Yeah, it's rough out there.
Hey, man, you just keep hitting those 7-way parlays. You'll be just fine, okay? You keep rocking and rolling on the parlays with the Royals. You'll be A-okay.
Yeah, they're doing good.
Yeah, they are. Hopefully you're making some money off them, too. What else do we have here? Legal services up 8.5%. Fresh fruits up 8%. Auto maintenance, I gave you that number. Video subscriptions. I mean, all these things are up across the board. So it is rough sledding out there, and it is not a situation that the American people want to find themselves in, and it's not good for Biden either. I don't care how much he spins the markets, the economy's great, everyone's hunky-dory. It's not being felt on Main Street, Joe. It's just not.
Come on, man.
Sorry there, Pops.